Welcome to Leadership and Learning, the podcast where we help leaders design learning strategies that fuel growth. I'm Jeremy Robb, a fractional Chief Learning Officer, or CLO on demand, helping startups and scaling companies align people, performance, and purpose. Okay. So today we're going to explore the impact of AI assistants and training AI assistants for people outside of your company. So last week, we talked about how you can use AI assistants, or the L&D team can develop your role.md file or your knowledge MD file to support your enablement of teams and train their AI assistants and help them out as they grow and progress and whatnot. So their assistant is then trained and ready to go as they're going through their onboarding to become more effective. So that's great, and that's fantastic for internal onboarding. But let's say you sell a product or a service and you need your customers and your partners to be well trained and well supported in utilizing your platform, which, by the way, is meant to also work with their AI assistant. Okay, now there's a lot here that I'm assuming. I'm assuming that you are building a platform or you're building a tool that, whether it's AI enabled or not, is going to be working with an AI assistant. Is that even realistic? Well, if you have an API, then yes, absolutely, because an AI assistant can utilize APIs to utilize tools directly, no people involved, and that's perfectly possible. I mean, most SaaS platforms, particularly like global SaaS platforms, stuff like Salesforce and ServiceNow, they will already do that, right? They'll already plug into multiple platforms and they'll utilize those platforms to strengthen, their integration and help everyone work in the same space. So what we're talking about now, though, is an internet that is being built that's not for human use, right? It's for AI assistant use, APIs, um, websites that are being rendered now in .md files, which is how AI assistants are reading websites, right? They'll look at a website right now. They've got to have a website that they then decode into an MD file and strip out all the garbage, right? Ads, pop-up ads, scripts, all that stuff. They just need the content. They've got to strip all that out and make it into an MD file. Well, CloudShare is already doing that for 20% of the internet, right? CloudShare services 20% of the internet. They now are building out for every website that they're serving, they're now creating a shadow website that's just MD files that a AI assistant can then read directly without having to decode the page itself. That's the future, right? So platforms where you're building user interface, you're trying to make it useful for humans to use. In the future, a lot of those platforms and a lot of those tools are going to be AI assistant enabled. And when I say in the future, I mean probably in the next few months. This is going to happen fast. AI assistants are taking off like crazy. OpenClaw was the fastest growing GitHub repository ever, and it's still growing. It's still just going like crazy. Claude Cowork and Claude Code, both of which are able to do a lot of what OpenClaw can do. Zero Agent is an agent that does a lot of things that OpenClaw can do and a lot of things OpenClaw can't do. But they're all kind of the same. These are your AI assistants that are finding their niche and they're growing like crazy, and people want to know how to use them. And what you need to do is train your people and your customers on how they can utilize your platform in an AI assistant. And you need to do that without forcing them to figure out how to write an MD file to assist them. So, how do you do that? Well, you provide MD files. You do exactly what CloudShare has been doing. You build out MD files that give specific instructions. And it's going to be very similar. And we can go back to my app that I created, that the MD file that I created for the AI assistant to work with a particular role. It's going to be very similar to that. The AI assistant is going to be looking for, if I'm working with this particular tool, I need to have a skill that's written for that. That's an MD file, but the skill that is written for that. And then in that skill, it gives me all the instructions of how, as an AI assistant, I will be interacting with this tool, this platform, this app, this SaaS organization, the SaaS tool, whatever it is that you're doing. That's the skill is going to tell them how to do it. The tool that plugs in is how your AI assistant or how the AI assistant is going to access your tool. Okay. Those two things are what you, as an AI, a pro AI, AI enabled platform, AI enabled tool, that's what you're going to need to provide in future. You're going to need to be able to serve that up to your AI agent, and have it be available to whichever AI assistant is going to be utilizing it. So ideally, and really this depends on how things kind of shake out. OpenClaw really set a lot of tone on how skills and tools are going to be written and identified. Time will tell to see if Claude. Time will tell to see if Claude does the same thing, or Gemini, or Norton, or a lot of these other platforms are going to be working forward. I'm fairly certain that Codex, as Codex gets developed out into its own version of OpenClaw, that it will use the same structure and the same architecture. So that's probably going to be the easiest and the safest way to work with it going forward. Um, but that's what you're going to need to do, is build out these tools. So how do you do that? Well, fortunately, your team is going to be able to work with these platforms and quickly and easily identify like how that would work, and build that out. Then you're going to need to build it per persona. Who are the personas you're targeting? This is where your L&D team comes in handy again, right? You've got an L&D team that's building training for customers. They're going to be your best resource for building out how the AI agent or AI assistant is going to be working per um, per role and per persona. They can build that out because they've already done that analysis. They already know how they're going to be using your platform moving forward. All you're doing is you're working with them to identify how a particular person, if a sysadmin is going to be using your platform with their AI agent, how is the AI agent going to go in and grab the daily logs and do the analysis, and then pop up to say, hey, these are things you maybe need to look at, versus the AI agent for, say, your end user is going to pop in and see what tools do I need to utilize in this particular case. Um, so let me give you some scenarios here so it kind of helps clarify. And I can do this through my personal experience at the last three companies I've worked at. So we'll start with ServiceNow. With ServiceNow, uh, they already have AI built in, and they're building AI agents, and they're probably this close, if they haven't cracked it already. They're this close to just having AI assistants built out in the platform. But if you are going to be using ServiceNow and you don't want to use their AI agents, you've got your own AI assistant. They have several roles. They have a sysadmin role, which is monitoring the ServiceNow platform and making sure that that's running smoothly, and you're not running into any errors. Um, you'll be able to grab notifications and everything and just process that directly. Um, then you've got oh geez, if you're going to do ITSM, your help desk folks, they're going to be grabbing incidents. They're going to be grabbing problems and change and stuff. That's all going to be that can all be grabbed by the AI assistant. The AI assistant can handle the light stuff. If it's an incident that comes in that says, hey, this wasn't working, I need to know what to do as a workaround, and it's because they didn't take a particular step. The AI assistant can take in um, that particular incident, write a response that says, these are the typical things that people miss. Have you checked that? And write it in a way that it sounds like you as opposed to a generic chatbot, right? And then monitor to see if there's a response that comes back and then answer it immediately. And then have that conversation run back and forth because it has the memory of the conversation and keeps track of that, so it knows what's going on, right? That's like the ultimate thing about AI assistants is that they have persistent memory and they know what's going on, and so they're able to utilize that memory to keep working and keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're going to be able to do that. Move on to ITOM, right? So monitoring the network health. They can look for specific errors as an AI assistant, and then proactively do changes that have already been approved and submit those changes, and then have scripts automatically do the updates for you. So errors that are immediately caught and immediately fixed, all that can be done by your AI assistant through ITOM. Right. And I can go through a number of different things. I mean, there's tons of applications that are built into ServiceNow, but that's how ServiceNow could do it. And they could do it in a generic sense. The real power comes from custom training, right? So ServiceNow has a custom training program where you go in and you say, we're going to be launching with ServiceNow. Our end users need to know how to use ServiceNow in this new workflow. It's part of their change management, right? That's where this will shine. You can go in there and say, okay, you're going to be doing this in your particular environment. This is your workflow. This is how things kick off. This is what your AI agent or your AI assistant is going to be doing for you. And here's the skills and here are the tools that you're going to need to have installed. And then here's the memory file, like the .md file that you need to add to your AI assistant. And that can be done through, your IT team can help you do that, or they'll give you instructions on how to do that. And you can upload that. That custom training is going to be invaluable because that's where end users go through change management and their AI assistant is able to go through that with them. Okay. So that's an example with ServiceNow. The next one would be Abnormal AI. So Abnormal AI, if you're not familiar with Abnormal, they are primarily email AI analysis, but they do web access analysis. I mean, they do some amazing stuff with with account monitoring, and they're able to, utilizing AI, identify when you're getting spam or when you're getting attacks, what type of attacks they are, identify that, and they're 97% accurate. Now, if you want to compare that to, say, a SAG, like Proofpoint, Mimecast, Apple, not Apple, but Microsoft's built-in SAG for their Exchange server, or even Google's SAG that they have built in for their email. They tend to be about 60 to 80% accurate, and that's because they approach things differently. Um, so AI and analyzing for attacks that come from AI, excellent. This isn't meant to be a sales pitch for them, but it helps you understand kind of what they're doing. Now, as a SOC analyst working with this platform, um, eh, platforms like abnormal AI are generally built to be set it and forget it, right? You turn it on, it does its job. You don't have to worry about that until you get the occasional, like 3% of the attacks that come through, and then you're going to be monitoring that. And then you'll update that with ServiceNow. Your AI assistant will be able to do all the monitoring for you. And for SOC teams that are just overwhelmed with security attacks, that are AI powered security attacks, having an AI assistant working for your SOC analyst that goes in, looks at the results, looks at reported attacks that have gotten through, and then does the automatic reporting, does all the reporting to the FBI that's necessary, grabs all the data from abnormal, and then does a report, does a post-mortem, and then sends the necessary monitoring response to abnormal so they can retrain their AIs, right? Now you've got AI managing all this, so there's no person in the middle having to do a lot of the analysis. That there is a person in the middle looking at it and making sure it's being done right, but the speed at which this can happen now, not just from detection from abnormal, but the speed of reporting, getting the reports in, explaining each and every attack and why that happened, what are the indicators, what have been done to stop this from happening in future, and then sending a lot of this off to abnormal so they can retrain their AI because they do that regularly, more than several times a day. This is going to be absolutely powerful. And for abnormal, the logical step would be to set up training for the AI assistant to know how to use abnormal as a tool and what the set of skills would be in order to utilize abnormal effectively. Right? You don't worry about the approvals and the interactions or anything at the abnormal level because that's going to happen at the AI assistant level. The AI assistant's going to be checking in with the human to make sure that they're aware of what's going on, what's been done, what's pending, and what needs to be approved in order to move forward. Okay? And as we get more and more reliable AI assistants, that's going to be less and less frequent. A lot of these things, which are just set it and forget it type monitoring things, that's all going to be taken care of by AI. So the last one is NetBrain technology. So if you're not familiar with NetBrain, NetBrain is a network monitoring and automatic task, like workflow task application. So it's very akin to ServiceNow's um, uh, uh, discovery and service mapping, but they roll everything into one and they allow you to build a lot of automations based off of your postmortems. What AI assistants are going to be able to do here, the AI assistant would be able to look at the reports that are coming in from your NetBrain platform, right? They're going to see what NetBrain is finding. What are the errors that are being flagged? Uh, what are the things that you need to see? And NetBrain's able to do this, plus create a virtual, like a virtual version of your network, so you can go in and do some testing and see how your network would respond to that particular test. So while you'll be using NetBrain as a human to identify how you're going to be making network changes for network status, that can be handled by your AI assistant. The AI assistant can maintain um, a log of what is happening in the network. You can say, fix it so it doesn't do that. The AI assistant will then make the necessary changes and set up the necessary workflows so that moving forward, you don't need to do this anymore. So for NetBrain, if they were to build out training for AI assistants, that would be the next stage, right? NetBrain is going to be a tool. There's going to be a set of skills that they're going to be utilizing, and that's how they're going to utilize it. And then for the main platform, which is the identifying, the mapping, and all that fun stuff, and building out automations and stuff. A lot of that they can do specifically for building it, maintaining, replacing, and building out new platforms or new network devices, and identifying how that works. Okay, so this is how you would utilize as a service provider, as a tool provider, as a platform. Those are three examples of what you can do in your customer enablement in order to support your customers. All right. And the same would apply to partners. Okay, your partners are going to be deploying your product, they may be selling your product, they may be using your product in order to do analysis and reports, and then maybe selling on from there, depending on what it is you're doing. Um, as a partner enablement, you can add a whole AI assistant piece to that. As a partner, if you're doing implementations, these are the checklists that the AI should be doing. These are the analysis, the hardening that your AI assistant can be doing 24/7 while you are doing the actual work of implementation. Or as you get more and more standard in your implementations, and this would be at the partner level, partners can then customize what they're getting from you as a service provider and say, this is how we do it at Accenture, or how we do it at KPMG, or how we do it at Cognizant, or all the other big ones, or even the little ones. This is what we're going to do moving forward. So all that is very possible, and you and your L&D team have the capability of doing this for your customers and for your partners. Okay. If you want to talk about this more and you have more questions or concerns, or just want to pick my brain, go to robclan.com, set up a free 30-minute strategy session. Let's talk it over and just see how I can help, and where you can go and what this will look like. Um, but yeah, I'm happy to help. Reach out. But anyway, thanks for listening to Leadership and Learning. I'm Jeremy Robb. We'll see you next week for more insights in learning leadership for growth.